What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you've subscribed on iTunes or Google Play, or you've seen those really awful streams that me, Sean, and Brock do on Mixer, which if you do, thanks for watching. I don't know why you do, but I appreciate that you do, and I appreciate you guys listening to this show today. This week we have our guest. His name is Duane Serge. I met this man on Twitter with the help of Sean Capri. You may know him on Twitter as Backlog Blues. But yeah, he joins us to tell us his stories, also share some of his experiences gaming. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter. You could also send it to the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast. Without further ado, let's get things started with Duane Serge. Do you remember what got you started playing games? Was it a family member, a friend, or did you go to a store and see it in the store? What got you started?
For me, the first thing I remember for playing video games is actually playing Miss Pac-Man at the bar where my grandmother worked. So I would be over there visiting with her or waiting for her shift to end, and she would feed me quarters, so I would either play pinball or play Miss Pac-Man, and that was the first foray that I remember. And then after that, I remember getting the Pong system. Was the first system I ever remember having. Just like the simple little paddle, and it had a switch on there which went from Pong to hockey, is what they called it at the time.
Of course.
So it just added extra stripes on the extra stripes on the board and confused the ball more. But from there, it was just kind of I enjoyed the video games. I liked the mentality of it, and I was hooked at an early age.
Dude, did your it's funny because I think about this. Did your grandma just give you unlimited quarters because she was just going to get them back? So she just didn't give a shit?
It's possible, but when you're a kid, none of that really matters. What matters is you're sitting around bored, you have a soda, you're waiting for someone to stop, and you can't do anything. So she'd just be like, oh, here's some quarters, go play Pac-Man. And
I just thought about that because, if she owned the machine, because, I don't know how that works, because I know it's I'm sure some places have, arcade machines that, the bar gets a cut of it. But if the bar, flat out bought the machine and it's just sitting there, if she's the owner, she's probably just it would be funny if she just walked up and opened up the coin collector, and was just there you go, have fun. Because that would keep me entertained for a while.
It's actually funny that you say that because one of the things that I remember over the course of my lifetime playing games is always going back to not actual arcades, but playing arcade machines in random places. And one of the places during high school was the local, not even a bowling alley, but maybe a pool hall or something. And they had a bunch of machines, and they owned all the machines. So they dicked with the settings to make the games harder or easier. And they would come out and empty the machines while you're playing. They'd be like, oh, hold on a second, wait till your ball's done on this pinball game, I'm gonna empty the quarters out. And there were times where they would do that, but then they would hit whatever that button is internally and just give you a whole bunch of extra lives or extra continues. So
that's cool.
I never had an issue with it because that was the result. If we were playing and they needed to do their daily collection, it's we have 3 credits in there. Next thing you know, they're okay, now you have 12 credits. Have fun.
You're hell yeah, thank you. I would try to purposely show up during those times. Just be oh, I guess I'm here when you do this all the time. That's convenient.
Oh yeah. And then my buddy, the one I used to go down there with, they had a Terminator 2 pinball machine. And he knew one of the people that ran the place. So I guess they were friends with his mother or father or something. So when we would go down there and we were just going to be hey, we're playing the Terminator 2 machine, they would go out and change the difficulty on it, change the magnets to make the ball roll a little bit better for us. Mm-hmm. And there were literally times where we'd put $1 in there and we'd be playing for 3-4 hours before we were okay, it's time to go home, go do something else.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always good to know somebody that's on the inside, be hey.
And now that I'm older, I realize all they were doing was feeding my addiction and, giving me the crack for free so that I could never get away from it.
Hey, at least it doesn't, ruin your body or make you steal from other people. Unless you are addicted to gaming and you want to steal quarters from your mom so you can go play. I guess that's like the worst you could do, you know?
So that was actually one of the things I was going to bring up. When I was younger, we had a local corner store, and they had like 3 or 4 of the machines in there and a couple pinball machines as well. And I have an addictive personality, and at this point, I am addicted to video games and playing. And I did steal my dad's quarters and run down there and play games. I mean, I'm like 12 at the time or something.
Right.
And then when he found out that I was doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I just wanted to play some games. And yeah, I got my ass whooped, but I had a good time. I learned a lesson, and
yeah, exactly. You only
got one out. I'm like, what do I have to do? Yeah, how can I earn some money to go play? And at that point, I think we ended up getting a Nintendo Entertainment System. So it went from stealing my dad's quarters to, hey, you know what? If you're going to play video games, don't waste my money like that. Let's just get the system, and went on from there. So
yeah,
I won in the long.
Yeah, like stealing quarters from your dad. I remember. I don't remember really stealing quarters or anything, because the thing is with me is, like, for arcades and stuff, there wasn't really, where I was growing up, there wasn't as many arcades. Like you said, there was like the random Pizza Hut that had a random ass game in it that we would go and like play arcade stuff there. There was, when I was, I used to go to Texas every year when I was older, or every year when I was a kid, I used to go to Texas, visit my family there. And that was when I discovered GameWorks, and I was like, holy shit, this is like the arcade where, they didn't have quarters. They had that card, and I was like, holy shit, that's fancy. And then they had the 2-story game that you sat in that rode you up and down the thing, and you're like, this is amazing. And that was like, it was weird because like I went from like no arcades where I lived, every day of the year except for during the summer. Then I go to Texas and these like next level ass arcades. I was just like, holy shit, these games are ridiculous. I remember one time I played, it was like a virtual reality, like Virtual Fighter or Tekken, where you literally had things on your hands and like kicking. And it was so weird because at the time it was so state of the art, but I guarantee you if I saw it today, I'd be like, Jesus, look at that thing. That thing is just like Elijah Wood in Back to the Future. That's a baby's toy. You know what I mean? Like it looked it was so primitive, but I remember it was all heavy. Like just the things you had to wear were super heavy.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, nobody's going to be doing Tekken moves with these things on them. Like this is kind of weird. So you just kind of did this and then your computer player did stuff and,
oh yeah, I remember being younger with the NES and thinking I was hot shit because somehow I convinced my parents to buy me the Power Glove. Oh, so yeah. I'm sitting there and I like get my friends over and I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to play some Mike Tyson's Punch Out with this thing. And then you're like swinging at the screen going, what the hell am I doing? I just got knocked out again by Glass Joe? What is wrong with the world?
Yeah, exactly.
So then me, I've always been like, the financially conservative type. I'm like, if I have something, I have to play it. So what I would do is take the glove off, turn it sideways, and use the D-pad and the buttons, and be like, you know what, I'm going to beat a game like this just to say I did it.
There you go.
But
yeah, I mean, the Power, man, there's a lot of things that they would fool you with. They have like, the Power Glove, which, of course, the Wizard, I love the Power Glove. It's so bad. Like, that sold Power Gloves left and right, but...
That's the reason I needed it. Exactly. I watched that movie and had to get the Power Glove, and, that introduced me to Super Mario Brothers 3, which became, like, I think the game that got its hooks in me, like, more than anything else ever.
By the way, I love how the little kid knew the damn secret when nobody's played this goddamn game ever. Like that was the game. That was how they showed and premiered the game. Yet somehow, dude knew where the whistle was, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." But then after that movie, everybody knew where the damn whistle was. Like if you didn't, something was wrong with you. You're like, "Wait a minute, how do you not know where this is? You haven't seen the whistle."
Yeah, what's your problem?
Exactly. And then, yeah, like I was going to say too, I had eventually they opened up an arcade in my town and they called it Nickel World, which is basically everything was like a nickel, and then they had, 5-cent games, they had 10-cent games, they had 25-cent games. But like the coolest thing was they loaded it up with like, so they had like, your standard like Time Crisis, and like your Terminator 2 game, like the gun games and stuff. But then they had like Simpsons Arcade, they had X-Men, like the 4-player cabinets. They never really had too many like the fighting games, but the coolest thing is they just had a ton of like classic games that even if you like ran out of like one nickel could get you like 5 credits just to like play that game. So it was really cool. So like even if you didn't have too much money, you could show up there, buy a $2 roll of nickels like from the people and just be like cool and just go play a ton of games. So and then of course they got DDR there, which then that became a giant scene because like everyone was there playing DDR because it was cheap as hell. So
that's crazy. The fact that you actually had a place that took nickels.
Yeah, it was weird because, like I said, it was like just there was no arcades around, and then all of a sudden this place showed up. And of course, they had the standard arcade where they had tickets and tickets, and they did birthday parties there and like all that stuff. It wasn't they didn't have like food or anything, so it wasn't like a Chuck E. Cheese style thing. It was more like just an arcade there. But it's still there too, which is awesome. Like I went back to Illinois and I was like, holy shit, this place is still here. So good for them.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, the closest I ever had to an actual arcade was Chuck E. Cheese.
Right.
But but like I said, it just so happens that no matter where we lived, and we moved around a lot, there was always like some place that had a couple of games.
Yeah.
Like I remember living up in York, Pennsylvania, and we literally lived 3 blocks away from the Peppermint Patty Factory.
Oh shit.
But when we first lived there, we just had like a little crap ass apartment. And we would have to go to the laundromat to do our laundry. Mm-hmm. Well, the laundromat, it had a Cruisin' USA and it had like another game or something.
Yep.
So anytime my parents were like, oh, hey, we have to go do laundry, I got excited as shit because I'm like, sweet, I get to go play some games.
Yeah. There was always those places like that. Like, again, it's just like pizza place I went to, laundromats, sometimes gas stations would have them in them just like randomly. Just weird little mom and pop diners would have a random arcade game or two to like shut the kids up while the parents ate their brunch or whatever the hell it was. Like,
yep.
It's so weird, but yeah, like now you don't really catch that anymore because everybody's got
you don't see that at all.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody's
that and like I live in Vegas, so everything I see is just like slot machines, so it's like old people video games.
Right.
Like, going to the store to get some milk, or the kid's going to eat breakfast, or am I coming home with steak today?
That is hilarious, because like, yeah, you're right, because in Vegas there are slot machines just everywhere.
In the gas stations, in the grocery stores.
I remember finding that so weird, because I live in Arizona, so I've been to Vegas a couple times. I just drive up, and it's just like, it's so funny, because you'll just show up and be like, fuck is that? Slot machines are just everywhere.
Yeah, when I used to visit out here, I would only ever be on the strip. So all I saw was the casinos. And then when I finally moved out here, the first thing I did the day that I moved out here and I drove across the country is the first thing I did is I went to Walmart to buy some liquor because I came from Pennsylvania where you had to go to a state store or a beer distributor. You couldn't buy that anywhere. So I was like, you know what? I'm doing it to do it.
Correct.
But it was like, you go into like the local grocery stores and there's like a row of slot machines, usually near the front, and you see people doing it. And at the friggin' CVS pharmacies, there's, a set of, and it's like, dude, you just came here to get your Viagra, but instead you're sitting down blowing $20 to see if you can even buy your prescription.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's just that addictive personality. Like, well, what's scary is you have that addictive personality there. Thankfully, it's not gambling. But, I mean, dude, like, you go anywhere in Vegas, and...
Oh, yeah.
It's anywhere, but, I mean, whatever. It works for them.
Yeah. Well, when I first moved to town, there was, like, a little crappy casino right by where I lived, and they literally had, like, quarter craps, quarter blackjack, and, I mean, it was just a dive place. Yeah. So, me and my buddy, we'd go up there and we'd play craps for $20 or something. But they had, like, a nice little cafe, and the sandwiches and stuff were good. And we used to go there to break our bills so that we'd have money for the laundromats. But like, for $20, I can do the same thing on the strip that I was doing for $100.
Yeah,
and to me, it was all fun anyway.
Right.
But, yeah.
Were you still getting free booze?
You know what? I wasn't doing that at the time.
Oh, there you go.
I was just trying to play a little bit and just have some fun. And
were they still at least handing it out?
I don't know.
I can't imagine, because I mean, like, when you get to that point, because I remember when I first went to Vegas and they were just bringing me drinks when I was at the blackjack table, and I'm just like, there's no cost for this, and I would just tip the waitress, and I remember tipping her one time really good, and she came up to me like every 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, and that's that's one of the things is you go to, especially like going to the local places, because a lot of the locals are a lot more stingy with tips. So if you're going to like play on the slots or you're sitting at a bar with a video poker machine, like if you're tipping them well, they don't care if you're playing or not. They're going to show up every time they turn around.
Exactly. Oh,
Whereas a lot of locals stiff them. That's right.
Yeah, just don't stiff them, because then you'll be like, where's that waitress? I haven't seen her all night. So that works. So yeah, we've gone to normal kid arcade games to adult arcade games. So that's like the best way to say it. They're basically adult arcade games.
Well, you know,
where you have the chance to get some money back.
That's the span of my life right there. Growing up, you know, playing like Asteroids and Miss Pac-Man, and now I'm an adult playing games that look more realistic than I thought was ever possible. But I have the option to go play the adult games as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, especially where you live. Like, I can go to a casino here and do that if I want to. But I feel it's weird because I don't know, like, when I'm here, I don't want to gamble, but when I'm in Vegas, I do. But of course, when you're in Vegas, you want to do a lot of stuff you don't want to normally do. So,
but when you're in Vegas, you're on vacation, and when you're there, you're home.
Exactly right. It's like, who wants to go to a casino? It's 30 minutes away. I can go to the casino whenever. That's why I feel bad for people that are like, "How's the Grand Canyon?" I'm like, I've lived here 10 years and I haven't been there once. Only because it's like I can go whenever. It's there. If you
have the same mentality I do.
Yeah.
Because like it's there, I know it's there, but I don't have the desire to go see it because I can anytime I feel like it, even though I haven't had that urge.
Right. And last time I checked, the Grand Canyon isn't going to go anywhere. If anything, it's only going to get bigger. So I'm just like, I'll see it one day.
You're waiting for that event.
Yeah, they're not going to fill it in or anything. You know what I mean? like we're good.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like we have the ability to do whatever we want here, but like my wife and I will go walk the strip and like people watch and, you know, just get a beer or two and just walk. But, you know, we don't gamble. We don't hang out at the casinos. And that's the fun part of like talking to friends. They're like, you live in Vegas, you must always be at the casinos. And it's like, oh, I actually haven't stepped foot in one in probably about 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, you probably get sick of it real fast and you're just like, no, I'm good. I'll just hang out at home and do my own thing. So that's kind of, you know, like I said, video games help out with that a lot. So as you, like you said, so what you were saying earlier was your dad was just like, all right, I'm tired of you snatching money. So you got an NES. Did you ever have any brothers or sisters growing up, like to play games with or anything? Or were your parents were they also encouraging of you to play games, or were they kind of like, no, we want you to do other things. Knock that shit off.
Well, so I had bad asthma when I was growing up. So me going out and doing a lot of the physical activities, I would always have asthma attacks and stuff. And they would encourage me to get the exercise, of course. But one of my drawbacks was I had exercise-induced asthma as well.
Oh, geez.
So I pretty much just, you know, made the shit list there. But they didn't discourage me from games ever. Like they knew I enjoyed it, and I was the type of kid who got good grades in school. So I'm not getting in trouble. I'm getting good grades. You know, this is my outlet. I had a brother that I played video games with, and I had a couple of close friends that we always played games together. So in that regards, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of money, so they basically told me, this is the game you have. You know, you might only have 2 or 3 games for the next 6 months, but at least you got something. So, you know, when you're kids, you're always trading with friends. Be like, oh, hey, you want to borrow Castlevania? I'll play Metroid for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's been a common theme on this show is you were on the birthday Christmas loop where it was like you got a game for Christmas, you got a game for your birthday, and if you were awesome, you could combine the two and get a new console. Like that was kind of how like a lot of people's mentalities were, and especially the good thing is, I mean, you know, at least your parents, I mean, obviously your parents were encouraging you to try to do stuff, but also too, I completely understand as a parent, like if my son was like, had bad asthma, I wouldn't harp on him too hard about like getting out of the house and doing that, especially if he's in that state where, yeah, I'm not trying to go out there and have my son die because I made him go outside instead of playing a video game. I'd be like, no, you're good. You can hang out. But yeah, I mean, and also to the friend thing, that's super important because as long as now, did you and your friends have the same consoles or did you guys ever have like very, you know, one person have one, the other person have the other?
At this point, pretty much everybody I played with, it was all NES.
Right.
And then like you had the like one rich friend who ended up with like a Neo Geo somehow.
Right.
But
and you still look at him funny because you're like, who the hell wants a Neo Geo, bro? Like, just go get an NES. Go buy like 30 games for the NES instead of that shit.
You can't play Mario. What's your problem? But luckily, like the friends I had, you know, we were always like, I go to their house, they go to my house, sleepovers. And, it was the same thing with like video games and music. Like we all had the same taste. So if I had Super Mario Brothers 3, nobody else had to buy it because they could either come down and play it or, hey, let's trade games for a week and then they could play it. That's how I beat Super Mario Brothers 2 actually, is I borrowed it from a friend for a weekend because he brought it to school for whatever reason. He's like, oh yeah, just bring it back on Monday. We did the same things with music. I'd buy the new Alice Cooper CD. Someone else would get the Poison CD. And after like listening to it for a month, we were like, hey, let's just trade.
That works.
So, yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have a good group of, at least you had friends that you could trust really good. So that's good.
Yeah.
I know how to get my shit back.
At this point in time, when this was happening, I was living in a town called Yo, Pennsylvania. And the population literally was maybe a couple hundred people.
Oh, geez. We
had a stop sign down the main street. It was just a small town in between two slightly larger towns. But, you go to school, everybody in every class. It's a really, really small town in Podunk, Pennsylvania.
Yo, Pennsylvania is hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Like, I didn't grow up in a super big town, but unfortunately, there were times where I let a friend, quote unquote friend, I'll just say a kid at school, borrow a video game, and then all of a sudden it disappears. Like the worst was I let a friend borrow a game, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, he just wasn't in school anymore. And I'm like, is he okay? Is he sick? They're like, oh, he moved away. I'm like, what the fuck? He had my game.
Yeah.
Pretty pissed off about that.
It's funny because the only time that ever actually happened to me is I let a guy borrow a game, and it was BioShock Infinite. And I was playing something else, but the game came out, and I needed the collector's edition for whatever reason, probably because I had the first two.
There you go.
So I bought the game, but I wasn't going to get to it for a couple of weeks. So I let a buddy borrow it, and then he let somebody else borrow it. And then when he got the game back, he moved to Texas before I could get it back.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, what the fuck just happened here?
I thought you were going to do, because that's happened too. Oh, I let another person borrow it. I'm like, hey, yo, bitch, that wasn't yours to let somebody else borrow. But I thought you were going to tell me the story of they let them borrow it, who let them borrow it, who let them borrow it. And now it's gone forever because you have no idea 7 degrees of separation of who those people are.
Yes. And I actually feel like that probably has happened at some point, but it was with a game that probably didn't matter because I don't recall it.
Right, exactly. So, no, that's, I like how I thought the story was going one way and then just, nope, asshole got it back and then just left. Yeah, again, it sucks, but those are part of those things you learn as a kid, like, hey, don't let everybody borrow your stuff. But you always have those good core group of friends, especially if you see them on a consistent basis or if you live in the same neighborhood. You're like, yeah, of course we're going to trade up games and everything. So,
oh yeah. And the thing is, when you're a kid, your parents tell you, don't just lend your shit out. Don't just lend your shit out. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh yeah, but I trust this guy. And then you get burned and you're like, well, how did that happen? And they're like, well, I told you so.
Mom, you were right.
Yeah.
He took my BioShock Infinite. I know you probably weren't talking like that around BioShock time, but still, you're like, no, he took my stuff.
No, I was just really annoyed at the time. But now it's like I have a 12-year-old and I'm like, hey, where is that? Oh, I let blah, blah, blah borrow it. I'm like, well, who is this person? Oh, he's one of my friends at school. I've never even met him. Yeah. You've gone to school with him for how many years? And you just see it ending badly, but I know it didn't work when I was a kid, so it's not going to work now. No. But I go through the routine. I'm like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. And then when it happens, I'm like, well, I told you.
Exactly. As long as you could tell your kids at the end of the day, I told you so, you're a winner. Just remember that. Just remember that. No, same thing happens. All of a sudden, my son will have something new. And I'll be like, hey, where'd you get that? He's like, oh, he gave it to me. I'm like, do me a favor, just go give it back to him. And he's like, but he gave it to me. I'm like, yeah, except for one day, his mom's going to find out he gave away that item, be super pissed, and want it back. So do me a favor, just go give it back to him.
I don't want to have that confrontation with the parent.
Nope, I'm like, do me a favor, kid. I get it. That's very nice that he did that. Please go give it back and just say, my dad said I can't keep it. Blame it on me. I don't care. Just go do that. Like, let me be the asshole here. You were being nice and accepting a gift, and I get it, but I get if it's a certain gift, I don't care. He's like, oh, I got a Pokemon card. Sure. oh, I got this huge item. I'm like, no, you go take that back. Like, I never got to a point, like, that was the one rule, like, my mom didn't care if I traded games with people, like friends in the neighborhood and stuff, but consoles were a big deal. She was like, no, you are not bringing your Nintendo or your Genesis over anybody's house. Not a chance at all. Like, that was the one staple that, like, if I stayed the night at a buddy's house, I could bring a game, but she's like, you will not be bringing the console. That was like the rule.
Oh yeah, the system never left the house. Right. If you wanted to play it and he had the system, yeah, not a problem. But, and like, I don't remember it being much of a problem, but like for me, my big problem is like if the 12-year-old's going to a buddy's house, like he takes the controller and I'm like, oh, those controllers are so valuable. Yeah. And it's like, and he's gotten dicked over like once or twice where his buddies had like a broken controller. So they, when he's not paying attention, make a swap and he comes home and he's like, my controller's not working. I'm like, well, that's not your controller.
Gotta mark that shit.
Because like the one time it really happened is like when I put my foot down, I had not a DualShock, but a 6-axis from like my first PS3 when it came out.
Right.
And I'm the only one in the area that has a 6-axis controller.
Right.
But he comes home with a DualShock that's not working. And I'm like, well, that's not the same controller. You need to go back to your friend's house. And they're like, oh, well, no, that is your controller. And I'm like, well, now you don't go over to their house no more.
Yeah, exactly.
Until my controller comes back, my working controller.
Ugh. What's funny is I bet you that kid swapped it, then quickly realized that the 6-axis is a piece of shit that doesn't rumble for whatever reason and goes, oh man, I got a working controller, but it doesn't rumble anymore. That was so weird that Sony did that. Like, I guess there was some patent issue with the rumble or something. So then finally when that shit got sorted out like a year later, they were like, oh, by the way, we put it back in the controller. It's just so
well, I think they didn't want to pay for the licensing on it, and they didn't think that it was that big of a deal to gamers. So they were just like, we're not going to pay for the licensing. And then the gamers are like, well, where the hell did it go? I'm used to this now. So
I think the only thing that threw me off was the fact that how much lighter the controller was without it.
Well, the fact that it felt like a pair of glasses. I mean, there was no weight to it.
There was no weight to it. And I think that threw me off. I was just flinging it around. I'm like, this don't feel right. This needs to be heavier. Like, this needs to have some heft to it. And it doesn't have these giant motors.
I was like, man, I really wish I could plug my PS2 controller into the system right now, but
yeah, but they tried to sell you on motion controls, dude, because you can fly and layer with your dragon like this, because everybody wants to fucking do that, right?
Yeah. Let's just not play those games.
No, we try to avoid.
My biggest problem was playing God of War, and you had to like go across like some of those ledges, but you couldn't like move the controller because you were going to fall off, and that shit pissed me off.
Or Uncharted 1 throwing grenades. Fuck out of here. They patched that later, thank God. But Uncharted 1, you had to angle your trajectory of grenades by the 6-axis, and I was like, that is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, it's just not good.
I think they had something very similar in Heavenly Sword.
Yeah, I'm sure
I was playing that, and I hated it, so I just quit the game.
Yeah, well, it's okay. A lot of people did. That's why God of War's just way better. that was like their pseudo God of War. They were like, this is kind of like it, right? Let's try to. God of War 3 will come out in 2 years. Let's just hopefully people like this. But it's all right. So then so obviously, like you said, so we'll go back to the earlier times. So you had an NES. Did you and your friends eventually? Did that lead you just to getting a Super Nintendo, or did you guys turn to the dark side and go Genesis like I did?
I remember at one point years before I ever got a Super Nintendo, I remember a Genesis entering the house. And
we just don't know how it showed up. It fucking walked in and hooked itself up. We don't know.
Like, I think like the Nintendo was kind of like mine. So then the Genesis was bought, and it was kind of like, well, that's going to be your brother's and this is yours. But nobody wanted to play the Genesis. I mean, we had Echo the Dolphin, which I absolutely despised.
It's such a bad first game for like Genesis. It's like that's not the game you want to show off your Genesis at all.
Yeah, so and I'm not 100% sure because nobody's ever been able to back me up on this. And it might have been the Genesis or it might have been a different Sega console, but it was something Sega. But on this version of the console, if you turn the console on and let it sit for a minute, it would go to what I called the maze game, where it had like a preloaded thing with just mazes in it, and you could use your controller and like literally just like a black and white maze, and you would try to find your way around, and it was on a timer.
Huh.
And I played that more than I would play any game on the system. Because I hate the games. But like, I can't find this. I don't know anybody else who even knows it exists. But
I personally haven't heard of that. I had the Gen 1 Genesis that had like the volume control and a headphone jack on it. Like, if you go look it up, it was before they had the cool like square one. It was like more rectangled.
Okay.
It was so odd because like it had like a volume slider, like it was a goddamn like amplifier. It had like a volume slider, it had a headphone jack, and I'm like, the hell is that? I never used it one time. I was like, okay, I guess that's there. But no, I've never heard of that. I'm sure my brother-in-law Nick has probably heard of it because he's huge into gaming. He owned his own game store. I'm sure he's heard of it, but like, yeah, I've never heard of that. What model Genesis was that? Was it like the normal square one, or was it like a newer one?
I believe it was just a normal square, but like I said, we ignored it. We didn't really play it a whole lot. I was,
when your options are
I was
Echo
focused
the
on
Dolphin.
Castlevania instead.
When your options are Echo the Dolphin, dude, you know what's crazy? It's like, and they had a sequel to that too, which is like, all right. Echo the Dolphin, like when you're a kid, just because it didn't tell you anything, you just like had to kind of figure it out. And I remember renting it and playing it, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing in this game. I'm just going out of the water doing flips and shit, and I'm like, well, this is cool, I guess, but I didn't know what else to do. Like, it didn't really give you much of an explanation of anything. And then you see like screenshots of like sharks and diamonds and shit, and you're like in the back of the box. You're like, where's all that cocool shit? Like, I didn't come across any of those things. But
that's how I felt when I was playing E.T. on the Atari when I was young. I was just like, oh look, I extended his neck. Now I'm in a hole. How do I get out of the hole? Reset the game.
Yeah. That's that one, dude. Well, back then too, like the thing that sucked about box art is that was to the point where the imagination was far greater than the reality. Whereas now, box art is like the game. Like that's how the game looks. Like back then, like, you know, certain box art you look at, you're like, holy shit, it looks amazing. And then you play it, and it's just an 8-bit dude just doing random shit. And like, I guess that's who that's supposed to be. Now we've kind of gotten spoiled where if you see a box art for Assassin's Creed Origins, that shit looks that good in the game. Like it really does. Like it looks really good. But yeah, getting
I honestly feel like our kids' generation is like getting screwed out because they didn't get to like see stuff evolve. They just started playing when everything started being amazing.
Yeah. I mean, well, also too, like now this is their starting point, which their starting point just happens to be fucking cool. But also too, back in the day, our starting point was NES, which we thought was cool as shit at the time. So I mean, each has its own perks. But I mean, also too, the one thing I was really debating when my kids were growing up and I was wanting to get them into games is like, do I start them playing older games now, or do I just let them play normal shit and then like maybe they'll get to it eventually? Because I didn't want my kids being weird like, my dad lets me play on a Sega Genesis when all of their other friends are playing Minecraft and shit. So I was just like, let's see how this works. Thankfully, my kids have, of course, they have me to guide them, but like I've shown them like, hey, here's Mario World. Hey, here's Mario 3. Hey, here's these games. And they've gotten to the point where they play them regardless of how it looks. I've never once heard my son go, this game looks like shit, I'm not playing it. Like, as far as graphically goes. They've never once seen, like, a 16-bit game or an 8-bit game. My son played Shovel Knight, and he's like, this game's awesome. So at least, you know, he's not a snob, because that's what eventually, as I was growing up, I would get to a point where there was one point in time when graphics mattered more than gameplay to me, which was really shitty. Because, like, there were some pretty-looking games that sucked. But I mean, that's the thing, is at least my kids have gotten to the point where they're not like that. So thank God that's the case.
I am glad I did not go through that phase, but
yeah, I did. It was really bad. Like that's partially, honestly, that's partially why Genesis was my main console, because like seeing Sonic being fast and cool and edgy and all that shit, I was like, I'm dumb. I'm a kid. Yeah, let me get that instead of Mario. Now you look back and Sega Genesis Classic is $30 and it's got 90 games and 80 of them nobody gives a shit about. And then the SNES Classic is $80 and has 30 of the best games ever made ever. And you know what I mean? Like, obviously I screwed up there because I honestly didn't have a Super of my own. I would just play it at buddies' houses and stuff like that. So, is that, so like you said, like, I like how a Genesis though just showed up. You're just like, don't know how the hell, it wasn't a birthday, it wasn't a Christmas, it was just like, hey guys, like, we got a Genesis.
Maybe he found it at a yard sale or something.
Yeah.
But there was no big, like, huzzah, we have a new system. It was just kind of like, oh, now there's a second system in the house and it's being ignored and nobody cares about it.
I would love it so much if, like, your parents tried to make a big deal. Hey, guys, we got a new game console. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. I hope it's a Super. It's a Genesis. Oh, God damn it. Just walk away. Just like, oh, no, you got the wrong one. No, yeah. But, like, majority of my buddies, it was just, again, that's where, again, it was kind of weird because gameplay-wise, not saying there wasn't good games on Genesis, but just nothing super memorable. Like, yeah, Sonic's okay. And I have fond memories of games, nostalgic reasons and everything. But also, too, some of those games you go back and they just suck. They're just not good. Like
the only game I have fond memories playing on the Genesis is the Beavis and Butthead game.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, back then, I had Beavis and Butthead on the Super Nintendo and the one on the Genesis, and they were different games with the same premise.
That's the crazy thing, too, is like back then, and that's still, in a way, for the most part, not the case now. But like back then, you would have you would have Aladdin on both consoles, but they were different games. But they was the same property, but they were just different games. And then Beavis and Butthead was the same way. And then games like Mortal Kombat, like Genesis had blood and Super Nintendo didn't. But I mean, you're talking some games had completely different gameplay styles, but they was the same license. So it was just so odd because now that doesn't really happen for the most part. Like, obviously,
unless you owned a Wii.
I was going to say, unless you own a Wii, or unless you own a Wii U, or unless you own a Switch, because some of those games that have been coming out for that have been, the thing is, for the most part, they're the same, minus some, like, obvious reasons, obvious things, but, but it's just funny, because, like, back then, and even that still, I think that still went on, though, all the way up until, like, probably PS2, I would say.
Well, I remember playing Dead Space on either the 360 or the PS3, and I absolutely loved it. So then they came out with a Dead Space for the Wii, and it was an on-rail shooter.
Yeah, well, that one, is different. But I'm talking like Aladdin, like came out the same time for both systems.
Oh yeah,
but they were just two entirely different games. Like that shit happens. Like some games are dumbed down versions of it. Some games are graphically not as good. They have like those spin-offs, which, I mean, Resident Evil was the same way, except for they did RE4 on the Wii, which was awesome. But RE4 is awesome on any console. I've bought it like 8 times. So yeah,
on every single console from the PS2 and up. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Like I remember, like, I had Xbox One, it was on sale, and I was like, fuck it, why not? I've already bought it so many times. Mario 64 is another game I've bought on every version of every console it's ever been on. So it's just,
I am the same way with Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, that happens as well.
I had it on the PlayStation in college, and then they did that version where it came out on the PSP, packed in with something else, and I bought that, and then I downloaded it on the PS3 and the Xbox One, and now I have a copy on my Vita, and it's like, yeah, every time that game's released, I'm like, okay, I'm a sucker.
Yeah, basically. I mean, again, it's whatever. I mean, as long as it's a good game, just keep giving them money. I don't care. It's fine with me. I've bought Skate 3 a couple times just because, like, I bought it, got rid of it because I was stupid, and then I rebought it, and then it was on sale digitally, and of course, I was one of those lazy people where I'm like, oh, I don't have to get up and swap the disc. Yeah, I'll buy it again. So, so I just did it that way. I was like, whatever. That works. So as far as it goes, so like I said, Genesis was like that redheaded stepchild. You're just like, oh, stay away from me. Yeah. Got a Super Nintendo, and like you said, you were Castlevania. I'm assuming like there were still those tentpole games. Did you kind of just take the franchises you liked from the NES and just kind of go over to Super with those?
Well, when I got a Super Nintendo, that was in high school. And I remember I got it, it was a couple years into the console's lifespan, and I think we bought a used one from, like, the video store where they did rentals and stuff.
Right.
So I remember getting it, and I don't know. It was such, like, my video gaming back then was so random. Like, I rented a lot of games instead of buying stuff. But if I really liked something, I'd buy it when the used video game place sold it.
Right.
So, like, I ended up with, like, F-Zero that way, like, Super Baseball Simulator 1000, and a bunch of random stuff. But, like, I love Super Mario. I played the hell out of all of them on the NES. Never played Super Mario World.
Have you fixed that?
No, I'm fixing it this year.
I'd say, what the fuck have you been doing with your life? What's wrong with you? Please quit fucking up in life and go play World, please, because World's like incredible.
So, my video gaming over the years, I have missed almost every major game that people are like, this is one of the greatest games and everybody has to play it. Like, I've missed almost every single one of them somehow. Super Mario World, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound. Anytime someone's like, this is a game that you have to play sometime in your life, I'm like, oh yeah, never played it. I'll get on it. It's on my list. I'm
like that with the majority of SNES stuff just because I didn't have one. So like Earthbound, Mario RPG, Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger, yeah, all those I completely missed. But also too, at that time I wasn't into RPGs as when I got my PS1 is when I really got into RPGs and stuff. So I wasn't just as into them. But yeah, I missed all those games. I still haven't played them to this day. I could easily get a SNES Classic if I want to and play them, but I'm like, I got a lot of shit I need to still play now, so I'm good. I'll get to them one day.
That's my plan, but I'm slowly going back through them. Like, I'll get Super Mario World on the 3DS, and I'll play it this year.
There you go. Because that's a game, though. Like, wow. Yeah, I get it, though. See, that one surprised me, because when you said World, I was like, holy shit, you haven't played World. That's crazy. But again, everybody has that game that they missed out on, and like I never got into GoldenEye or Perfect Dark ever. For the one shooter that got me into shooters was Halo. Like I never had a buddy that had GoldenEye. Again, like I transitioned to like PlayStation, not as much 64, but like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, never touched them.
So during that generation, I went PlayStation because Final Fantasy VII came out.
Yep.
That was the only reason I bought the PlayStation.
Yep.
However, in college, I had buddies who had the N64, and I thought the Zeldas looked like crap. And we would have drunken GoldenEye parties,
right?
And I was the guy who died 100 times and maybe got a kill. So that turned me off of shooters because every time I'm in a game, I'm dead. Because they would sit there and play GoldenEye all the time and get good at it, and I would only play when we had the groups together.
Right.
I'm like, screw this shit. I'm going to go play Madden. And, me and another buddy were just playing on the PS1. So I missed out on all that stuff, and GoldenEye completely destroyed me of shooters, and I didn't get back into them until me and a buddy, we picked up the original Xbox, and we played through Halo. And that was fun. And then somebody convinced me to buy BioShock, even though I hated shooters. And, like, that was the game that it's like, you know what? If it's a single-player campaign, I can do this.
Right. Yeah, like the whole – see, it also depends on, like, the timing of everything, right? Because I remember trying to go back and play Perfect Dark after because of Rare Replay. So I was like, cool, I got this. Let's go back and see this. Now, my eyes now, I'm playing it, and I'm just like, no, I don't like this. Like, but again, it's a sign of the times and everything. Some games age well, some games age so poorly. Honestly, most games from the PlayStation 1 era, especially if they're those 3D realistic quote unquote graphics, they age so goddamn poorly. Just visually, it's jarring. You're like, holy shit, this looks crazy.
Yeah, it's the first try at all that 3D stuff, so the cameras were ass. The controls were horrible.
Everything was a point. Like, Lara Croft's tits were just points. And, Final Fantasy VII, when you play that, how everything is just so, like, nothing's smoothed out. Yeah, everything's jaggedy, and it's just, again, like, you go back and play them, and you're just like, Jesus, man, everything's jaggedy. Like, it's just so odd and jarring. And then, obviously, when things smoothed out, just overall, it looks better and stuff. But, yeah, like, you go back to Resident Evil 1, I played the Resident Evil HD remake because I bought, Xbox had a killer deal. It was, like, Resident Evil 1, 4, 5, 6, Code Veronica something, all for, like, $22. It was, like, sold. Absolutely. I went through and played RE1 because I played it on PlayStation 1, and it was a remake. It's the HD one they did on GameCube, better graphics.
Okay.
So I'm playing it and I'm like, man, this game looks okay. Like, obviously it's a sign of the times. Not realizing that wasn't the PlayStation 1 version that I played.
Right.
That was the GameCube version. And then I looked at videos of the PS1 version and I'm like, oh my God, I played that and thought that game looked amazing at that time. And now I'm like, I laugh. I'm like, I cannot do that.
Yeah, I remember doing the exact same thing, but with Dino Crisis instead.
Yep.
In fact, like, we would go over to a buddy's house and we would, like, play Dungeons and Dragons once a week. And we'd be over there and, like, I would show up early and he'd turn on his surround sound system, plug into PlayStation 1, and him and I would play Dino Crisis. And it was like, oh, this is amazing.
Right.
And like you said, like N64, PlayStation 1, those games are just, you try to go back to it. Last year, I tried to play for the first time Conker's Bad Fur Day on the N64.
Oh, and I was going to say, not even fully reloaded. Like, you're talking OG
yeah, no.
64. Oh, God. All right.
Yeah, I had gotten a free copy,
right.
And I know everybody talked about how cool it was back in the day. And when I worked at Game Crazy, someone tried to trade in an N64 for, like, I know I was going to talk about this with you at some point too. Someone tried to trade in an N64 and I was like, you get $5. And they're like, huh? I'm like, well, it's 360 and PS3 now. All this old stuff you're not getting anything for. And they're like, well, I tell you what, here's an N64 and a box of games. They're yours. So I got a bunch of random stuff like that, mostly sports, but
of course, Madden 2000. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. But yeah, so I tried to play Conker's Bad Fur Day and I was like an hour into it and I'm like, I can't even like bring myself to try.
Yeah. It's that whole generation, but also too at the time, like, again, that was mind blowing. That was the shit. Final Fantasy VII. I remember Square's cutscenes for the longest time fucking broke my head of how good they looked. And then you play the game and you're like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, 7 and 8 and like the summons in 7 the first time you cast Knight of the Round and you're just like, this is fucking amazing. And like 6 times later you're like, does it have to be 5 minutes every goddamn time I cast this spell? What is wrong with these people?
I got shit to do, game. Like I got things to do. I got chores to do and you're fucking my world up.
Yeah, I have to take a class here in a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that bummed me out, Final Fantasy VII, got it, loved it, played it. Came back from school one day, went to go turn it on. It said new game. And I'm like, huh? Cool. Where's load game? Why does it not say load game? Go to the memory card manager. My sister decided to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and deleted my 7 file. And I was like, all right, well, I'm never playing this game again. I'm not doing this all over again. I'm done. So that's again one of those things that like you say, oh my God, you didn't play this, this, and this. I never beat 7.
So for me, when I was in college, I was the only one with Final Fantasy VII at the time. I had a couple other friends who had Tactics, and they played the hell out of that instead. But I'm playing 7, and I'm going through, and I'm taking my time, leveling, and I get to the point where you, like, go down these weird floating steps that look like they're in space,
okay,
and you're going to fight Sephiroth. Once I hit the second step, my character doesn't move anymore. The background's still going. It looks like the game maybe just kind of froze. So, like, 10 minutes later, I'm like, okay, this is a glitch. Restart it, freezes in the same spot. So I had a faulty third disc.
Oh, my God.
So, like, 2 years later, one of my buddies picked up the game, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to borrow your third disc. Took it back, still had my memory card. And at this point, anytime I played the game, I was grinding to go beat the, like, Emerald and Ruby.
Right.
So now I'm, like, leveled beyond all shit. And I go down to fight Sephiroth, and I wipe him out before he can even get to his big attack.
Jeez.
And then, not only am I pissed because I had to wait 2 years to beat the game because my disc was faulty, but then I go down, and it's like, the final boss is a cakewalk, and, like, none of the cool stuff happened that everybody talked about. And I'm like, I wish I never would have done this now. But other than that, I love the game.
Right? Yeah, the whole waiting 2 years to beat it, that would kind of piss me off. Like, I wouldn't be too thrilled with that. Recently, my buddy Bryant, he's come across game-breaking bugs. He came across one in Tomb Raider, the Rise of the Tomb Raider game, and he straight just went, fuck it, and just stopped. And he's like, I'm done. I can't do this shit. It happened to him in Assassin's Creed Origins. After that dude's put 80 hours in the game, like one of the final missions, something glitched out on him, and he literally, in the Facebook thread that we're in, just blew the fuck up. He's like, yo, fuck these games. I put too much time into this shit, and then you glitch on me on like the second to last mission. This is bullshit. Like, he freaked out, and I'm like, at least now they have patches where a patch can come out and potentially fix it. What bummed me out is apparently patches came out for his Rise of the Tomb Raider, and like it didn't fix the issue he had, so he was just more pissed. And then like Assassin's Creed, apparently some patch happened and he was able to play it. But he actually like restarted Rise of the Tomb Raider just recently, and he's like, dude, this game looks really good. I forgot how good this game was.
So the last 2 times that I've had bugs anything like that, both Bethesda games. So in Skyrim on the 360...
No, not a Bethesda game.
Yeah, you kill a bunch of witches and you have to bring their heads back so you can stop being a werewolf.
Yeah.
Well, the game glitched and I could never turn the heads over. So now I've got a bunch of witches' heads in my inventory taking up weight and space, and I can't stop being a werewolf because I can't turn the heads in to end the mission. God. So now I'm playing and like half my inventory is taken up because instead of bringing 1 head back, I decapitate all of them and bring like 6. Oh yeah. So that one screwed me over. And then before that was Fallout 3, where I go through and I did everything in the game, get to the DLC, and there's someone where you either have to have like a prisoner's outfit or wear a certain outfit to get into a DLC. And somehow I accidentally killed the guy, sold the outfit off, and now I have no way to activate the mission to start the DLC thing.
Good job. Like, well, not good job to you. Good job, Bethesda, for having that be an option.
Yeah, and the fact that I put 100 hours into the game, doing everything, getting all the achievements, and then when I finally get to the DLC, that's the first DLC I'm trying to play, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this game, never going back.
Fallout 4, I got the game of the year. Let me phrase that. I got the game. I got the season pass. Didn't play it forever. I was playing other shit because, again, we talked earlier about games being too big and not wanting to deal with it and shit. And I was like, you know what? I bought it. I need to play it. So I started playing it. I did all the DLC for it, and then I got to Nuka World, and the game just ran at like 8 frames a second. I was just like, I'm fucking over this. I don't want to play this game ever again. So I beat all the other DLC for it. Cool game. But, yeah, I was just like, dude, I'm not going to torture myself and put myself through this wrecked DLC for a Bethesda game. So I'm like, I'm good. I'll just stop playing.
Yeah.
So you continued on. So you got a PlayStation. People in your dorm were playing 64. Was there ever a point in time when gaming when you didn't play games, or were they kind of just continuing to be like a good focus of your life going forward?
There's been several times, and it all started after the PS2, essentially, because I played the hell out of the PS1 until the PS2 came out. The PS2 was the first thing I ever pre-ordered. And then I traded my PS1 in towards it, right, which is like my big gaming regret because now I don't have that. And it was like, but, when I played a lot of PS2, we picked up an Xbox. I ended up getting a Dreamcast actually sometime in that time after they went on clearance because the company stopped making them.
Right. Because
I had a guy on campus who had all the games burnt to disc and he could just give me copies of them.
Good job.
Thanks.
Allegedly. By the way, we have to say allegedly because that didn't happen. That's alleged. He didn't copyright infringe tons of Sega shit, and he didn't ruin any copyright laws. Allegedly, that all happened. Continue.
Yes. So, and then, like, during the PS2 era, it's like I played on and off. Like, I played a little bit of the Final Fantasies. I played some God of War and stuff like that, but it was very spotty. Like, I would play for a couple months at a time, and then I wouldn't play for 6 months. And then I moved to Vegas, and the PS3 and the Xbox 360 came out, and I picked them up, and I was like the same way. It was just kind of like off and on until the end of their life cycle. And then that's kind of like when I started, maybe not even the end, maybe more towards the middle, but that's when I got hired at Game Crazy. And now all of a sudden I'm surrounding myself with video game geeks, and I've got these repeat customers, and I'm really starting to get back into it. And now I'm like playing games and like having, and the thing with me is I had the friends around me that were playing them. So that got me more interested. Whereas beforehand, like near the end of the PS2 cycle and early in the 360 PS3 cycle, I didn't have a whole lot of people around me playing. It was kind of like just me.
Right.
So that's why it was so spotty. But then once I started working for Game Crazy, like really just got back into it and, started up like crazy.
I really want to thank my brother-in-law, Nick, because without him hiring me at Game Crazy, I probably would not be into video games as much as I am now, because it's literally almost the same story. I had the PS1, played the shit out of it, and then a game called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out, and I played it, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to try skateboarding, like actual skateboarding. And it literally consumed my life for my entire high school. Like, I did not do anything. I didn't care about video games. Like, when the PS2 came out, Xbox came out, I was just like, I don't give a shit. I'm skateboarding. This is way more fun. So I literally did not, my whole high school, I didn't touch video games. Unless it was a Tony Hawk game at my buddy's house, I did not play video games. They were playing Halo. They were playing, like, all these cool games. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, can we go skate? Like, I really don't care. And then as soon as I got out of high school, my brother-in-law, Nick, worked. He was a manager at a Game Crazy who, I was dating his sister, and his sister, my wife at the time, girlfriend, was like, hey, you should hire my boyfriend. He's really nice. He needs a job. And literally, started working there. And then it was the same thing. Like, I was like, yeah, I know games, I had this and stuff, but I don't play games as much anymore. And then as soon as I got hired there, I was like, what in the fuck have I been missing? There is a lot of shit to play. And being around it all the time and seeing trailers and seeing people pumped about it and seeing people coming in and pre-ordering shit, and just like that excitement literally reinvigorated everything to the point where I had I had PS2, GameCube, Xbox so fucking fast. I was just like, I have to get back into this.
When you got hired at Game Crazy, what was the time frame? What was the big stuff at that moment?
I got hired the summer that Spider-Man 2 came out. It was 2004. So, like, Spider-Man 2, like the video game for PS2 and shit, which is still so fucking good. So good. It was that. So it was like, that was the same year. I want to say it was like Metal Gear, San Andreas. Either it was 2004 or 2005, but I remember those being like the big games.
Okay, so you were before me then.
Yeah, I was before you. So, I actually exited Game Crazy after the 360 came out. It was 2006 when I left. I left summer of 2006, which is 360 was out, but PS3 and Wii weren't out yet. So they were coming out that fall. So that's when I left.
So I started, I think, late 2007, 2008-ish. And, like, I've worked at Lowe's for now 15 years. And I just reached a point where I was like, you know what, this sucks. I need something new. And I was just going through the ads and I'm like, Game Crazy? What the hell? I know video games.
Right.
Put in for it, got interviewed, got hired for their management and training program where they're like, hey, we're going to pair you up with this guy. And as soon as the store opens, it's yours.
Nice.
So with me, I got put in like one of the bigger stores in Vegas, which was nice. But like when it all started to like work for me, like that store manager wasn't big into gaming, but he knew how to hype stuff. Like he had people convinced that Haze was going to overtake Halo. It was that much of a good shooter.
Oh
like
my God.
Yeah, I know. But he was just good at talking, and he'd be like, yeah, man, this game. And I've seen the trailers, and we at our manager meeting. And so like there was all that, and there were like some really cool people that worked there. And then the Grand Theft Auto 4 midnight launch. So for that one, the company went crazy and they put a big ass party at our store with us and the Hollywood Video. And they brought in like people from a radio station to like talk to the people showing up, waiting in line for the games, play music. Yeah, it was a big ass party. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm in. I'm going to get a special edition. And it was like from there is like when I got reinvigorated because like that midnight launch was just fucking spectacular.
Right.
I'm like, video games. I'm used to just being like, oh, I want to go get the new Mario game. But like with this, I mean, it was like a party. It was an event.
Yeah,
and I was
like,
were
hyped. And seeing people come in and getting so hyped over shit made you excited about it. And like, yeah, dude, like that's exactly what got me back. And as soon as that happened, it was full tilt from there. I'm like, video games are fucking fully back. Obviously, skateboarding, I still do, but when you have a family, it's a lot easier to play video games than it is to go skateboarding. So it's just like, dude, I was so into video games after that, and I haven't stopped since.
Oh yeah. And that's the one thing I miss about not working there and the company going out is I miss the customers. You know, we had some very seedy customers in a few of the places I worked. Like there was this one guy that showed up. He always looked homeless, but he would come in and buy every single new game and he'd put the protection on it and he'd pay with cash. And we actually had this one guy and he just flat out admitted, like he would call and he'd be like, "Hey, listen, I can't get to the store until like 1 a.m. Are you guys going to be open?" I'm like, we only got 10 people in line. And it's like for Madden every year. Like this dude, Madden was his life. And he's like, "Listen, man, I'll make it worth your while." I'm like, "Dude, we're going to be done by 12:30. I don't want to stay around until like 1:15. He goes, "I tell you what, how many employees are there?" I'm like, "Well, it's me and 2 other guys right now." He goes, "Okay, shut the store down. But when I show up, you open up, you sell me Madden. I'll buy everybody in the store Madden." I'm like, sold. Done. So we stayed around. We played Madden on the TV, waited for this dude to show up. And I'm like, "Man, you know, you could have just showed up tomorrow." He's like, "Dude, I'm going to be sleeping all day tomorrow." He goes, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm a drug dealer. I have all the money in the world. And Madden's the one game I play constantly. So if you weren't going to stay open, I was going to have to go somewhere else."
Fair enough. Well, thank you for being so honest.
Thanks for calling. Thank you for my copy of Madden.
I was going to say, thank you for my copy of Madden. Yeah. I'm not kidding you. I want to like do a separate podcast with you just about Game Crazy because I'm sure we have some ridiculous stories. Like, just ridiculous stories. For this, so this doesn't turn into a 3-hour podcast. So the good thing though is like, so that was later on in life. So like, were you there till the end of Game Crazy or did you bounce before they closed?
Oh man, I was, like I said, I was a manager. I was like living the high life.
Ride or die until that shit shut down.
Yeah, I was getting good money. My people liked me. And I love the customer base. So I ended up quitting because I was still working part-time at Lowe's because I had nothing else to do. I wasn't dating anybody. It was like me and the dog at home. So I was just working both jobs, making as much as possible.
Right.
And like, you know, the announcement came down and they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're closing and now we're getting rid of all the employees and only the store manager's working," type of deal. Jeez. And it was like, so once it started to get like really bad and you like knew it was happening within the next couple months, you know, I waited till the next full-time position at Lowe's and I was like, I got this. I'm putting in my 2-week notice. And the moment I said I'm putting in my 2-week notice, an hour later, there was another store manager. "Oh, hey, I need your keys. You're relieved of your job and here's your check."
Holy shit.
Because once a store manager puts in your notice, they don't want you to like screw them over.
Yeah, they don't want you fucking them up and like taking money and taking shit. So yeah, that makes sense. But at least so now going forward though, I mean, obviously you continue to play games. You're still playing games now.
Yeah, and the thing is, like with the 360 and the PS3, it was like I regained the ability to play with my friends back home.
Yes.
So I played Borderlands 4-person co-op. Sometimes with somebody else here, a lot of the times with 3 people back home, and we did the entire game over the course of like months and months and months whenever we could play.
Are these still the same buddies that were playing games with you back in the day?
Yes, these are people that I met during, some of them it was like my buddies, new friends from work or whatever, but like my one buddy that like I've had since college, like, you know, him and I, and now we do the same thing with like Diablo 3 when we get a chance.
That's my buddy Jared. Shout out to you, Jared. Me and him are like ride or die. Like we play the same. Like, well, I've known that dude since I was like 6, and if it wasn't for Xbox, I don't know how often I'd be talking to that dude. But we play PUBG all the time. We do a ton of shit all the time on gaming, and that's the only way I stay in touch with that dude. So I'm the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's awesome. And like, you know, when my buddy comes out and visits me, I'm like, "Hey, I've got to work." He's like, "Nope, that's cool. You have an Xbox. I'll play games till you get home."
Yeah, I was gonna say I can entertain about anybody who comes to my house because I got wall Blu-rays and I got every game console on Earth. So have fun. You know, nobody's gonna get bored in my house doing shit. So that's for sure. Right. So what are your gaming habits like today? Obviously, we talked earlier. You have a Switch, and I'm assuming you have a PS4 because I think that's a PS4.
I have fucking everything, and I've had everything forever. I mean, like since I gained disposable income, I picked up the systems that I couldn't get before. Like I said, I had that customer give me an N64. It's the only reason I own one.
Right.
You know, I've picked up some handhelds when I find them at the used places. And I got married. It'll be 4 years here in April. which the funny thing is we will possibly still be in the hospital during our anniversary when the new kid's born. So,
Congrats to,
but
like, all of the above.
yeah,
New kid, 4-year anniversary, all of that.
yeah. So, we got married shortly after all the systems came out, the PS4 and the Xbox One. So what I did was, like, I bought the PS4 and I bought the Xbox One, and I'm like, I'm going into the marriage with this stuff, so she doesn't have to look at me and be like, why are you spending $500 on a system and games when we got bills? Like, but I came into the marriage with this stuff. So, and then when the Switch came out, like, you know, all the hype leading up to it. So I was like, I saved money. And I'm like, hey, babe, new Nintendo system's coming out. Just want to let you know I'm buying it. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
My wife is the same way, because my wife, you know, well, also too, she buys shit too, though, because she's like, you make money. If the shit makes you happy, go ahead and go buy it and everything. So thankfully, again, disposable income, fortunate enough to be able to afford this shit. Yeah, like, the only thing I have to convince her is when I have to get another Xbox. That's the hard part, because I had an Xbox, and then my son got his own, which was thankful to that. So then all of a sudden my daughter in the loft didn't have one, and I'm like, oh, well, that means I got to get an Xbox One S. I mean, I got a newer TV. I got to get an S. And my wife's just like, why do you need a new Xbox? And I'm like, well, because of this, this, and this. She's like, and I'm like, but the one thing I kept throwing, well, Kayla will get her own now, so her and Alex won't fight. She's like, okay, fine. So I got that. And then I'm like, oh, the X is coming out.
Yeah.
And then I got the X, and she's like, so why do we need 4 Xboxes in this house right now? And I'm like, well, we need a 4K Blu-ray player for the other room. And then, of course, if me and you want to play Diablo, we don't have to go in my room. We can just play in your. She's just like, whatever. So we have 4 Xbox Ones in the house, and I tell people that, and they think I'm a psycho. But I have very valid reasons, you know.
Listen, I get it, and I picked up a second PS4 for pretty much the same reason. I'm like, you know, we have this PS4. It's hooked up to the TV in the living room. But there's times where you just want to be in the room by yourself, and you want to watch Netflix or Hulu, and if we don't have cable, so if I have a PS4 in that room, you can fire all this stuff up. And she's like, well, couldn't we have done it with, like, that Kindle stick thing?
A $30 Fire Stick?
I'm like, babe, no, it wouldn't be the same quality. All I'm telling you is we needed this. And, like, she doesn't game, and she doesn't do any of that stuff. And, you know, I know friends who have had those wives where they're like, they scrutinize every, like, oh, why did you buy that? What do you need? So, like, with my wife, it's like, I'm always like, hey, I have a friend coming into town, and he's going to be playing poker. So I was going to go out, have dinner with him and play poker, and, you know, take a couple $100 out of the bank to do it. And she's like, oh yeah, you haven't gone in a couple months. Have fun. And I'm like, I love you so much.
Well, also too, I will tell my wife, yeah, I'm buying this new Xbox, and she's like, well, that's cool. I'm just going to go to Kohl's. And I go, oh, no.
Oh, crap. I lost that one.
But again, me and her make our own money. We both work. We both bust our ass. And we want nice things. So if I'm going to buy an Xbox One X, she's just like, cool, I'll go to Kohl's. I'm like, I just get scared because her Kohl's trips sometimes get real scary, but she's also really good. You know, she's not going to go nuts on me and buy $1,000 worth of clothes or any crazy shit like that. Thankfully, she's not into like Coach purses or fucking outrageous shit like that. But,
my wife loves Coach purses.
God, no. Oh, dude, I'm so happy my wife's not into stuff like that. She's into stuff, but just not like that higher end stuff. She loves shoes. Yeah. But she's not going to go spend $200 on a pair of shoes. She's like, that's stupid. But I'll buy 50 pairs of shoes and have them. I'm like, all right, I guess. So, again, you get to that point where you become an adult, you get money, you can do it however the hell you want.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm happy I'm in a relationship where we both agree with that sentiment. And for the most part, I'm not spending a whole lot of money right now. She's not spending it because we're saving up for the house.
There you go.
So we both know that, like, when I'm like, oh, hey, I want to pick up this game, she's like, yeah, you haven't treated yourself in a long time, you know, and
just don't go buy an Xbox One X.
No, I want one. I want one so bad, but I can't justify it.
Do you have a 4K TV?
I do. I picked one up at work on Black Friday.
I was gonna say, if you don't have a 4K TV, don't worry about it. But then you said you did. Shit. It's terrible. It's really bad.
Well, I haven't hooked it up yet. In fact, I got it out of pure luck because I was helping a guy who came in shopping, and I walked him all around the store, and we got all of his shit, and then I went up to the register, and I checked him out, and I helped him load it. and he paid with like gift cards that he gets through work. So the last gift card he used had like a $25 balance on it, and they all started like a multiple hundreds of dollars.
Right.
So I get out there, I help him load, and he's like, hey, you know what? Thanks a lot. I don't have any cash, but this gift card had $25. You can keep it. So I put it in my wallet, didn't think about it. Like 3 months later, I wanted to buy a soda, so I'm going through my wallet. I'm like, oh crap, got this gift card.
Right.
I'll just use this. Swiped the gift card, came back with a balance of $391 on it.
Oh shit.
He gave me the wrong gift card. So Black Friday hits, Lowe's randomly gets these 4K TVs, and I was like, I can pick up that 32-inch and put it on the gift card and not have to spend a penny for it.
Might
so I was
well.
like, fuck.
That's
Thank you,
yeah.
random dude.
Thank you, dude, who just randomly gave me the wrong gift card. So, dude, that's awesome. Well, again, buy your house, get a cool-ass house, and then after you get your house, then fill it with cool shit, because that's what you do.
The Xbox One X.
Exactly. There you go. Get an Xbox. And that's your housewarming gift to yourself. Just buy that.
Yeah.
If people wanted to check you out or check out any of the games you play and everything, see you on Twitter, because that's where I met you, where would they go?
So the first thing you do is you find me on Twitter. I'm at backlog_blues, where I just randomly chat with everybody in the podcast community and weasel my way onto their shows. And then check out backlog_busters on Twitter, and also just Google that shit into like iTunes or Google Play, because it's the random horrible podcast that I just recently started, and hopefully we'll get better.
There you go. He'll get that. And of course, check him out and everything. Oh, what about PlayStation? I'm not going to ask for your Switch friend code because nobody knows what the fuck that is off the top of their head. What about like PlayStation or Xbox gamer tag?
PlayStation and Xbox, you can find me at grrouchie, GRROUCHIE. And if you're really interested, I blog way too often at grouchie.com.
There you go. Well, if you want to check out any of the stuff he has, I will also have links in the show notes and everything. Maybe he'll give me a Switch friend code, but nobody plays shit on the Switch, so that's all right.
I play all the time, damn it.
Well, if Nintendo got their online shit together, we'd have a little bit better time.
Yeah, if only we could chat or send a message or
transfer save files or, shit that we've done for 15 years, All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you asking to be on and sharing all your stories, man.
Dude, it's been fun. This has been a blast.
Thanks, man. All right. And again, thank you, Serge, for being on the show. If you guys want to check out any of this stuff, he has his podcast, which is Backlog Busters. So feel free to subscribe to that, listen to that as well. I will also have links in the show notes for everything. His Twitter is at Backlog Blues. And of course, he has everything. Switch, 3DS, PlayStation Network, Xbox, all of that in the show notes. Go ahead and check him out. Feel free to play some games with him. If you guys want to be in the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast. I also have a website, GUGpodcast.com, and I also have a Facebook group, Growing Up Gaming. Search that in Facebook. You'll be finding it there. I would love to make that more popular. Just, maybe people sharing some old games. Obviously, my Twitter has gotten more popular thanks to some of the guests I've had lately, which I appreciate every guest and everybody who's shared the show with friends, shared it on Twitter. I can't thank you guys enough. But again, if you guys want to be on the show, definitely send me a tweet, and I'll definitely catch you guys next week with another guest. See ya.